east. The tornado threats are mainly on the east. We've obviously had some tornado warnings today. I believe we had 2 confirmations. We had that one in Telfair County earlier, and then we had the one, unfortunately, in Wheeler County that sadly claimed a couple of lives. Never ever want to hear about that. That's one of the biggest concerns with overnight tornadoes, and why you've got to be able to get those warnings is because you can't see them, especially with these types of storms. There's almost no lightning at all. So when there's no lightning, you even get a look at it, you really got to depend on those warnings to know, hey, what's coming, when do I need to be in my shelter, etc. And you know, in terms of mobile homes, those are not safe to be in regardless when it comes to tornado threats. And if you live in one of those, it's important for you to take note of that and get out to somewhere safer before these threats kind of make their way in. That doesn't mean a mobile home is not safe for a hurricane, but I would still be a little hesitant to be in one, especially in our southern counties right now with how strong some of these winds are. So let's go ahead and see if we can't get a look at a couple of these winds and the gusts. Let's see how they are picking up around the region right now. So as you can see, does not look like the numbers inside of Middle Georgia right now are all that bad. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pull in for all of Georgia, and we're going to kind of see what the winds are looking like around the state versus just here in the region, all right? So that 39 of Valdosta does seem like a little bit of an underestimate based on the number I just told you. So we are going to continue to monitor this. I hope the METAR sites are working properly. These are coming from readers, like actual measurement readers. So it'll be interesting to see how well these reports you go through tonight. But the METAR stations are what I give you every day when it comes to the wind speed, the temperature, the feels like, the dew point, all that. Those typically come from our METAR sites, which will give you your accurate information. But some of them could be a little wonky depending on how this wind is holding up. Keep in mind it was 115 miles per hour down there in Valdosta, at least reported by the airport. So that's pretty nuts. You do see the gusts starting to push over 40 miles per hour. Actually, we got Soperton at 50. So the gusts are certainly starting to pick up around the region. And again, we want to try and keep that eye. And right now it's looking decent in regards to that, with that eye potentially being east of a lot of our counties and spots. That doesn't mean we're necessarily all going to be on the west side, but it looks like our major population centers, Macon, Warner Robins, we're going to be on that west side. Dublin is the one we're going to be watching here, right? Is Dublin going to be on that east side? Is it going to be in the middle of the eye? Is it going to be on the west side? Where is that track exactly going to continue to go? That's what we're obviously continuing to monitor, and you do see it's crossed I-75, but it's moving relatively slowly. Now, something else I do want to show, let's go ahead and check on current levels of power outages, because that's going to be a pretty big thing as we go through tonight. Earlier I was showing them as percentages, but I think that showing the actual numbers is going to be a little bit better. So let's go ahead and make sure we're on now with this so we have the most up-to-date numbers. And let's kind of look at what some of the power outage numbers are looking like as this has kind of made its way in. Let's start first down in Tallahassee, Florida. All right, we're going to need the pixel query for that. So let me go ahead and clear this guy. We know about plenty of flood warnings out there. Let's start getting power outage numbers. 60,000 people are without power down around the Tallahassee area in Florida. Here in Georgia, Valdosta, surrounding areas, 30,000 people without power. Down in Florida, Lake City, this area, there was a confirmed tornado. That's 30,000 people without power. How about Jacksonville, Florida? That's on the eastern side of the state, complete opposite side from Helene. That's 110,000 people without power. Probably was a tornado in that area earlier, if I'm going to take a guess. But you're starting to see some of these creeping further north in Georgia. I believe this is Ben Hill County. We've got 7,000 without power there right now. Waycross, that area, 5,000 without power. But currently in Middle Georgia, really not seeing a whole lot in regards to that. It says 300 in Bibb County, says 100 in Houston, Washington County, it says 100, or yeah, not Washington County, excuse me, Hancock County says 100, and then we got Telfair County here, 100 as well. Keep in mind we did have a couple of confirmed tornadoes earlier, Telfair and Wheeler counties, but overall right now really we're about normal in Middle Georgia, right? We've had some rain, there's been a few gusts, but it hasn't been anything overly concerning. But as you can clearly see, a lot of folk without power down in Florida, so we're still going to continue to monitor and say, hey, what kind of power outages are we going to potentially deal with here in Middle Georgia? Again, that eye going a little further east than expected, that is absolutely huge. I'll see if this is up to date. So that says 102. That's a little outdated. So Here, let's go with this. So now you see some of these, I'm going to cue these instead of the other wind. I want to see if these are any different than the numbers that we were kind of looking at before in regards to the METAR numbers that were popping up, right? So, you know, down in Wilcox County right now, I have got to remember to turn on the query tool. Down in Wilcox County, we are seeing 24 mile per hour winds right now over, let's see, the southern part of Telfair County pushing 30, but you do see getting a little stronger as you head further south. None of these are jumping out at me a whole lot. Let's get a little closer. Okay, eastern eye wall says 50, 60. I think these are underestimates. This is very much still a hurricane. The eye is weakening, the storm is weakening, but at this point, there is absolutely nothing that's telling me this is not a hurricane. We got, again, Valdosta, that report from the airport came in like 20 minutes ago or so. I mean, you see the eye has you know, it kind of cleared its way over Valdosta and into the, starting to head a little further east in the state at this point in time. So there it is. There's that eye for you now on the eastern side of Valdosta and I-75. And we're seeing the heaviest rain with this, you know, Lakeland, Florida, Pearson. You got a lot of flash flood warnings out in this area. Of course, it's showing the tornado watch first. Many of us are indeed still under a tornado watch until 8 a.m., but we're really not seeing a lot in the way of wind shear right now. As you can see, it looks like we've got one little spot south of Eastman. So as the eye wall and whatnot kind of comes closer, that tornado risk is dropping, which obviously we do like to see that. Nobody wants to see any more tornado threats. We've had enough of those to go around already today. But let's actually go ahead and start taking a look at rainfall and what we've seen here. Over the last 24 hours has been more than enough rainfall, probably for, you know, a few weeks, if not months, for us here in Middle Georgia. We start collecting number totals, and they are just so high. We got 6.5 in parts of Johnson County. Over in Washington County, more than 6. Around Dublin, we're seeing about 5.5. Macon, again, last 24 hours, almost 3. Warner Robins, about 3. Perry, about 3. Then you start looking a little more west, you know, into Upson County, about 5.5. Towards the Atlanta area, we're seeing 4, 5+ inches. So really, really been wet the last 24 hours. But if that eye stays a little further south, that really, really helps reducing the threat of the downed trees, you know, the power lines. Not saying we're not going to get any of it. I'm sure we're still going to have some power outages. But folks, I don't think you understand just how big of a deal it is that the eye is not moving through our population centers. It would take a miracle for that thing to come right back to the west and make its way into here. It's just, it's not really making that happen at this point. We throw back up that infrared satellite and you will indeed see that it is, you know, it's moving. It is the booking in terms of the speed of this storm. And that's why when it comes to the rain totals, they're probably going to be a little less than what some of the numbers were throwing out there because it's so fast. Slow moving storms. You think of like Hurricane Harvey back in 2017 and like how it sat over Houston and just kind of did a loop-de-loop for 24+ hours there. That's why the flooding got so bad in Houston. Slow moving storms are typically devastating in terms of the flood potential. Obviously, because that cold front came in first, there are some of us that are dealing with some pretty rough conditions here. But overall, it does seem like that flood potential in Middle Georgia might be a little lower than in, say, other parts of the state, like North Georgia, because that cold front kind of got into here, kind of got towards Macon last night. We got a good amount of rain from it, and then it just kind of fell apart. And that's kind of where it stalled out. It's continuing to try to push this way. Hurricane's in its way. But the cold front isn't going to necessarily back off, so it's kind of trying to force this thing off to the north-northeast. Now, in regards to the rain totals, we still could see another 3 to 4 inches as we go through tonight in some spots, especially closer to this eye wall. So we're going to continue to monitor this. Again, it's starting to get a little bit closer to our counties here, right? We're starting to get a little bit closer in regards to the eye and starting to see its impacts into Middle Georgia. And I'm not necessarily huge on the fact that it's headed towards Telfair and Wheeler and Lawrence counties. These are areas that have had enough problems already today. Almost every tornado warning we saw was in Telfair, Wheeler, Dodge, or Lawrence counties. That's where basically every single one of them was. We did have that one in Washington County where the radar database crashed, and that was the whole thing. But Overall, not overly active on that front, which is good. I saw some forecasters saying they're thinking, oh, there's going to be hundreds of tornadoes out there. And I'm just like, I highly doubt that. I understand that the environment was a little more favorable than it normally would have been, and we've seen a handful of warnings, and I'm sure there'll be more tomorrow further up the East Coast. That is something to take note of. In fact, let me see if I can show you that real quick. The SPC Day 2 risk. And the reason why this is important is because it kind of illustrates a little bit as to what, yeah, all right, so there you go. If I turn off all these other alerts here, and you kind of see where this risk is, as I've mentioned before, when it comes to hurricanes and their tornado threat, it is east of the eye. Why would it be this far east for tomorrow if the storm is going northwest? You see what I'm saying? So definitely interesting to see that. South Carolina, North Carolina, level 3, level 2. We're done. We don't need to worry about severe weather tomorrow, all right? Tomorrow we will have some strong winds on the backside of this storm, but it is not going to be anything like what we're dealing with right now. It's going to start the cleanup process. It's going to be a lovely weekend, all right? Let me tell you guys something. If your power goes out and you're worried about your AC and, overheating or whatnot, it's not going to be a problem. All right, not going to be a problem. Our high tomorrow is going to probably range between 80 and about 83 for much of the region. It's going to start off cloudy. We'll get a little bit of sun in the afternoon. We'll keep it in the mid-80s all weekend. Overnight lows will get into those low to mid-60s. You can open your windows and let some fresh air in from outside. It's not going to be humid once this thing is done because of the cold front. The cold front bringing in that drier air. I actually looked at the weather in Mississippi where I went to school today. Starkville, they had a high 82, a low 61. They're just west of this storm. They had the cold front come through, so they didn't have to worry about this. So that's the type of conditions that we're expecting when this thing is said and done. So if you're worried about your AC being out, you'll be all good. Promise. Absolutely promise you. All right, we should be putting all those 90s, etc. behind us and finally getting some fall weather, which I cannot wait till we get. Now, let's go ahead and continue to follow this eye here. All right, it is completely done with I-75 now, and it's just, it's looking like it's headed towards Telfair and Wheeler counties. That is what I am seeing right now with this trend, with this path. So if I'm in those counties, might want to start thinking about a safe place. Again, we're going to see what kind of wind is packing, but I would expect gusts to reach about as high as 100 miles an hour, and sustained speeds will likely range in the 70 to 80 potentially. Those are the ones that will be closest to this eye. So need to be in our safe spot. Again, same as like with tornadoes, it won't be as bad as a tornado, all right? Let's talk about that. Tornado, even the EF0, that's about 100 to 110 miles an hour. The EF1s, 2s typically push about 150. That's what main tornado threat was for today, right? About of EF2, and I said, hey, EF2 tornado, that's Cat 5 wind in the eye wall. So that's the strongest winds that we're seeing essentially associated with this in them brief spin-ups as it comes our way, and we should largely be done with those now as the center of this storm is coming in. That was mainly earlier on. So now as we continue to follow this, it doesn't look like there's any tornado warning in South Carolina right now. We're just waiting to see where this strongest wind goes. For a lot of us, it's just going to be gusty. But for those who have to deal with this eye coming through, that's where the conditions really do start to get dangerous. That's where that power outage is going to come in. Now, here's the good news. Some of the rain totals may not be as high in our southeastern counties. Obviously, we've looked at those. We can check them again real quick. But we saw the heaviest ones were in, Johnson County, Washington County, and then some of our northwestern counties. It's actually not as bad in Wheeler Telfair. Still going up, still a decent amount, but it's not as bad as some other parts. So that is something to keep in mind. The saturated ground is going to make for some trees to be easier to blow over. I expect a lot of roads to potentially be impassable as we get into tomorrow morning, especially for these southeastern counties because of where that eye currently is going. But in terms of that rain, it's definitely starting to get a little bit heavier out there, mainly in these southern counties. You can see a nice little wave right here through Dooley County and into Pulaski County. Not really any lightning at all. According to this, there is one lightning strike somewhere on the screen. We can look here and try to figure out where it is, but good luck with... Oh, there it is. We found it. It's near the border of Georgia and South Carolina. So one measly wet lightning strike. That's all, which is why that overnight tornado threat a little spooky. At least we're not really dealing with the shear right now. We'll check that. Currently, come on, show me the shear. Oh, maybe it's not showing anything because there isn't any to show. I also want to turn these warnings back on. So there really isn't a whole lot to worry about in terms of shear. Let's say, I guess, one spot in western bid, but yeah, I'm not overly concerned here. That does not jump out at me whatsoever. We checked the radar. That's nothing concerning. So we're just checking this heavier rain, and now let's wait and see, you know, what kind of flash flood warnings are going to end up coming out of this, right? You've got a couple of them to the south right now. But and it's going to keep showing the tornado watch. I would love to see when those flash flood warnings are going to expire, but it's always going to show the higher priority watch or warning. And typically speaking, tornadoes are considered more dangerous than floods, even though floods honestly get downplayed more than they need to. Flooding is a very, very scary thing. I will tell you, as someone who's driven through areas like that's flooded, this was back in 2020 or 2019 when I moved out to Wyoming for my first job, all flooded in Iowa and Nebraska. All the snow melt just rushed down there. I mean, it was like within 6 inches of like overflowing onto the interstate. I'd never seen anything like that. Absolutely terrifying. You can see it on the news, you can see it in videos, but when you see it in person, it's kind of like wildfires. You see it in person, you see the sky turn orange and everything smells burning and ashy, you just know something isn't right, and it's just scary. But luckily, we're not really seeing any flash flood warnings in the region right now, save for this one that's been in effect again. That's largely driven by that cold front that came in. So we're still expecting the worst of the rain moving into the region now as Helene continues to track off to the north-northeast. But we're not seeing anything overly intense at this point. I do want to see if I can throw the wind back up there. I feel like the numbers that have been popping up are underestimates in regards to the type of wind that we are currently starting to see around the region. I'm going to go ahead and throw these up here. Let's see, where are they? High resolution. If I was any closer, it'd bit me. So, I mean, we'll go ahead and take a look at some of these numbers, but I feel like they should be higher. I feel like these should be higher. I'll turn on the gusts. Let's see what we got with those. But, like, these numbers, 27, 25, it just, you know, maybe I should step outside and see what it actually feels like wind-wise out there. It's actually been a bit since I've stepped out there. But I just feel like some of these numbers are underestimates with a literal hurricane that is coming our way. So I want to see if I can switch this to the gusts here. Current wind gusts. If not, I'll just switch it back to the other graphic that had those, because I'm seeing speeds, but I'm not seeing gusts here. So, all right, back to over here. There's, again, so here's some of those gusts. We're seeing 40 to 50 in a few spots, so it is picking up. There you go, wind speed, seeing a lot of them in that 20 to 25 mile per hour range now a little bit. Going to be very interesting to see what kind of numbers will come up as this kind of continues to move our way. Keep in mind that this eye now has crossed I-75. It is on the other side. So we're continuing to monitor what way that goes. But remember where our hurricane warnings were and whatnot. I'm actually going to turn off the tornado ones temporarily so you can see where the hurricane warnings versus tropical storm warnings are. All these lighter shaded orange, these are the hurricane warnings, and these darker shaded are the tropical storm warnings. Look at that versus where the eye currently is down in Valdosta, and maybe we should have had some hurricane warnings issued a little further to the east. But as it is weakening, but keep in mind where those strongest winds are. If the eye was going this way, maybe this works out a little bit more, but we are clearly seeing that it's taking a more easterly track than what the cone was demonstrating. So that's just something to keep aware, and that's a good thing for most of us here in Middle Georgia, is to see that the middle of this storm, the center and most dangerous part, is making its way off to the north-northeast. So we go ahead and throw the satellite up there one more time. And again, gotta switch it to the rainbow. I'm gonna see if I can find a way to default that. Won't be able to figure it out now, but you see there's your eye right there. And if I go ahead and just literally throw this on for the last hour, it is clearly still going north-northeast. It is very much still going north-northeast, and it is almost bullseyeing towards Telfair County. So Telfair County, Wheeler County, Montgomery County, Trutland County, these here potentially Dodge, but I mean this is almost bullseyeing straight this direction. Let's draw it. Let's draw it. So it is booking it. It really has not shifted direction since it made landfall. Right? Kind of came in from Perry up to Valdosta, and it's still going this way. So that's kind of the path it looks like it's following as of right now. That goes right through Telfair County. That goes right through Wheeler County up into Truitland and Montgomery. So we're thinking the east side of that eye wall is where the worst of that wind is. So let's draw a line there from that. That's going to kind of go this way. So we're thinking maybe parts of Telfair County going to get that, but I bet that Wheeler and into Montgomery going to probably see stronger winds. We'll see how that kind of carries up into Lawrence as well. Keep in mind, when it comes to the eye itself, not very strong. The northern side of the wall, decent strength, a little stronger on the east. Western side, not as bad. But the big thing also is that if you're on the western side of this storm, you're going to start seeing this wind coming in from the north as this eye moves. If you're on the north side, it's going to stay from the east, but once it comes through, it's going to shift to out of the west. And then lastly, you've got the winds that are on the eastern side that are coming up from the south, and once you are west of that eye, you will see those coming in from the north. So very, very sudden shifts in direction, which also is a problem in regards to the trees, because sudden shifts will obviously, like it's used to one way and then suddenly it goes the other. Something I could think of that kind of comparison to that maybe. I used to see high wind warnings a lot when I worked in Wyoming. The road closed light and high profile vehicles, meaning they don't want semi-trucks and they didn't want motorcycles on the highway during high wind warnings. If you're on a motorcycle and it's high wind, you're leaning into that, and then suddenly that wind lets up, you're flipping over onto the roadway because you've been leaning into that wind to brace yourself straight, and then suddenly it stops. So it's similar, like the trees resisting one direction and then the wind flips. So that could be a bit of a concern for where that eye exactly moves through. But it does look like it's going to avoid our major population centers by a decent mark at this point, unless it really starts to curve west, which we're evidently not necessarily seeing right now, because again, it's going to take a lot of effort to steer a storm this large when it's already veered east a good bit from the initial track. Now, in regards to any tornado threat, we are doing pretty good right now. Don't think we're going to have too much to worry about on that front as we continue through tonight. So that's good. We're really just trying to monitor this eye. Where's it going? As mentioned, kind of bullseyeing right now towards Telfair County. We do have a couple of tornado warnings in South Carolina, but that's not affecting us here. We had our share, for sure. Today was a decently active day in regards to that, more than I like to see. If you have more than 0 confirmed tornadoes, it's too many. That's the way I see it. So, yeah, this is still a very dangerous storm, but it does look like a good chunk of middle Georgia will end up missing the worst of this. So that's good. Let's actually check out a futurecast. Let's see if any of the futurecasts have updated and can give us something decent. Forgive me while your screen kind of is blank for a second while I pull that up, but it'll take a split second for me to get that open. I do want to check out, like, what are the futurecasts saying now in terms of what, as this comes in. We're going to check the HRRR, because that model updates every hour. It's usually really good in severe weather type situations for that reason. It updates every hour, so you get something fresh every hour. It's good at adjusting to what the current conditions are. So let me see if I can find one of those for us real quick. Let's do a Georgia one here. Latest HRRR. So this typically goes out about 18 hours. So actually, I do want one that has numbers on it. Let's make sure we've got the wind gusts on there. There it is. So we do want to make sure. Okay, apparently that one doesn't have the gusts on it either. I'll add them real quick then. I will add the gusts. Pardon me. This will take a split second. But I mean, I feel like with the eye now being where it is, it definitely does help to reduce the threat that a lot of us are going to see. So those are temperatures real quick that you're seeing there. But I'm going to make those gusts from the HRRR. So we'll actually have a decent representation of what we are dealing here. So wind gusts, boom. All right, there you go. So I'm going to drag this in. So you see where that eye is. And this is trying to bring it a little more, starting to try and curve it towards north-northwest there. You kind of see how that's going. You see where the eye is kind of right now, right? And this is bringing it a little bit more west of what we are kind of actually seeing. Look at the numbers though. You see how the wind gust numbers are pushing 80 plus. So there's still a lot of strong wind awaiting us on this eastern side. I do think this is going to be a little further east based on what we are currently tracking. Because again, that eye right now, it just came through Valdosta and it's like bullseyeing towards Telfair County. But there's still a pretty good amount of this heavy rain. Let's check out future rain totals. We'll go ahead and do, I guess, from this same model. I do have other ones I can show, but let's see if I've got one here. So HRRR, and we want the rainfall. And we'll just do our region here. Let's see. Oh, that's prior rainfall. We want future rainfall. HRRR, rain accumulation. So we're going to do Middle Georgia here on this one. So as you can see, those numbers, that's right now. There we go. So those are honestly not too bad. You do see they are a little worse on the eastern side. This does make sense given the track of where that eye is going. But keep in mind, we've already gotten about 5 inches, in total of rain. I know the 24-hour total for Macon was around 3, but keep in mind it's only 24 hours. We got to go back all the way until yesterday around 8, 9 p.m. when that rain first moved in. So yeah, it's probably closer to 6. So that still ends up resulting in Macon getting about 8 inches in total. It is still a lot of rain that we have gotten in the past couple of days, but we still obviously following the heaviest amount of rain as it kind of makes its way in. So we've got another few inches to go. Looks like a lot between 2.5 and 3. But as I switch back to that radar, you can kind of see where this heavy rain still is. Still no other flash flood warnings in the region right now, right? We got one to the south, a couple of them to the south, and we got the one in the northwest up here. This one I can click on. That one expires at 3:15 a.m. But these ones to the south, they're going to still show up as a tornado watch. Oh, 5:30 a.m. tornado watch. Yeah, so we still got plenty of rain to go. Just got to keep following this eye here and seeing where it goes and where this strong wind on this eastern side right through, this is around this Douglas area. This is where some of our strongest wind is right now. It may not actually be this big of a wind field, but that is probably where our strongest winds are in association with this at this time. I'll pull up the numbers from the METAR site again, and we'll take a look at those. But I feel like they are underestimating it just by a hair a little bit, given that we did have some gusts in Valdosta. That was 133 miles per hour. That is a ridiculously strong gust, 133 miles per hour. We are continuing to see more flash flood warnings getting extended further east in the southern part of Georgia. So that is still outside of our region. There's your winds. So they are picking up. They are picking up. Now we're starting to see 25, 30 miles per hour. So maybe we're just waiting for that sensor to kind of give us those updates. These are starting to pick up a little bit. You do see some yellow hinting off to the south. So that's where your strongest winds are coming towards our southeastern counties. But right now, it's not overly concerning. I would still be getting near my safe place, or at least, trying to hunker down in our southeastern counties. Mobile homes are what concerns me. If you're in a regular house, you should be good. But mobile homes, I do worry about the wind potential with this and what it may be able to do. Not quite at tornado strength, but still, you're talking wind that is consistently just kind of hammering on it. I do worry about the window integrity and whatnot in some of those. So just do be aware of that possibility. We may have a little bit of news for you in a little bit, so I can get a bit of a breather. But there's an update for you, some of these winds. So wind field updates. Kind of looks like it is shifting a little bit more. There you go. So it's still slightly lagging, but you can definitely tell it is moving a little more east than what was projected. And that is not a bad thing for us here in Middle Georgia. I can throw the power outages up there again. They shouldn't have changed in our region at all by this point. I would assume that we're still probably looking around the same in regards to that type of stuff. Let's see, currents and then power outage numbers. So we're still probably around the same in terms of that. Valdosta area 30,000, 12,000 in Ben Hill, County, Jeff Davis County, 2,500. Now we got Telfair, 100. I think that actually may have been the number before. But we're just going to continue tomorrow. I am worried about the power outage situation in the southeastern counties. Telfair County, Wheeler County, Montgomery County, because that eye is indeed heading that direction. All right, Tug, what you got?
All right, check 1 2 here at the Tubman Museum in downtown Macon. Tons of rain. Not really, but